Great. Welcome, everyone. Hello. Welcome to the CalHFA Audit Committee meeting. It is our first meeting of the year for October 22. So with that, Melissa, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you to do a roll call and a welcome.
Thank you, Art. Just want to let the audience know that any of the materials today are available on the CalHFA website under the board meetings section. We will be recording the meeting as well, and a copy of this video will be available on the website. So with that, I'll go ahead and take roll. Mr. Balmer is sitting in for Treasurer Ma today. Mr. Balmer?
Present.
Mr. White? Mr. White has notified us that he'll be running a little bit late and joining shortly. And Chairperson Sotelo?
Great.
So
Present.
we have, yeah, thank you. So with those two members in attendance, we have a quorum.
Great. Thank you so much, Melissa. I really appreciate it. I wanted to go ahead and welcome the entire team to the audit committee. As I said, this is our first meeting in a little bit. It's our first meeting in 2022, but I'm so glad that we're here. When we get a chance to introduce Mr. Fred White, Melissa, just let me know when he joins. I understand he'll be about 5 or 10 minutes late. So we'll just stop the meeting and get a chance to introduce him, since he is our latest and newest board member. Committee member. And then Mr. Balmer, I understand that used to actually work for CalHFA, but now you're over at the Treasurer's office. So welcome, and I'm glad to meet you, glad to see you. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and recognize and congratulate our newest comptroller at CalHFA. So I just wanted to make sure that she is here. I don't see her on the screen. Melissa, can you just verify that she is? Ms. Glashenko?
She is on screen.
There she is. Oh, I see her. Okay, there you go. Wonderful. So it's nice to have you, and welcome to the team, and welcome to CalHFA as our new controller, since Lori has retired, and you'll be guiding us through the maze that is the audit committee. So thank you so much for your participation, for your help. Melissa, I wanted to go ahead and maybe turn over to the committee, since we do have a quorum, to approve the minutes of the last meeting. We have in our packages our revised, what was it, May 27th, 2021 meeting minutes. Melissa, correct me if I'm wrong. Is that May 27th?
It's
or October 21st?
Right, we sent a revised packet out. We had the wrong meeting minutes in there. So the meeting minutes for approval are October 21st, 2021.
Oh, thank you so much. Thanks for the clarification. So Mr. Balmer, do you have any changes or any comments to the October 21st meeting minutes?
The treasurer has no changes to the comments. I make a motion to approve and adopt the minutes.
Wonderful. So thank you for that. So the motion is to approve, and the minutes are approved by consensus. We don't need a second and a vote for that, but we'll go ahead and approve by consensus. So thank you again very much to the team for making the pandemic transition so smooth for us. I know we haven't had a meeting in a minute, but it's nice to see everybody virtually. And hopefully once the board gets back to the in-person meetings, we will also start having our audit committee meetings in person. So I look forward to that day. But thank you, Melissa, and for your team, Mark, as well, for arranging all these meetings and having them be such smooth transitions. As a point of order, what I'd like to do is, if it's all right with my fellow committee members, is I'd like to move item number 5 ahead of item number 4, So before we turn it over to Ms. Glushenko to review the audit financial statements with Ms. Merchant, I wanted to go ahead and see if we could please move ahead in the agenda, the review of the charter. So Mr. Balmer, if you're okay with that, let's go ahead and hear item number 5 first, and then item number 4 after that.
Okay.
Great. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Ms. Johnson Hall, to whomever you want to introduce this item, or Ms. Glushenko, whoever wants to go and review the charter item with the committee.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Our new comptroller has prepared a short presentation for the committee, and so I will now hand it over to Ms. Glushenko.
Great, thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you very much. So I just have a brief presentation on the audit committee background, composition, selection, and annual meeting requirements. So before we review the audit committee charter, I think it's important to understand the committee roles and responsibilities. So I just want to, provide a brief reminder. So the committee was established in January 2006 when the board of directors adopted resolution 0608. The audit committee assists the board of directors in fulfilling its oversight responsibilities in the area of financial reporting and accounting integrity. The audit committee acts as an advisory capacity to the board concerning audits and related financial matters. The most recent audit committee charter, resolution 06-15, was reviewed during the last audit committee, October 21st, 2021. Those are meetings we just approved a minute ago. For the composition of the committee, there are 3 voting members of the board selected by the chairperson of the board. Each member of the audit committee shall be financially literate and have accounting or related financial management experience, and they serve on the rotation basis with staggered terms. So currently, the annual required meetings are held twice a year, and the conduct is a public meetings with independent auditor, management, and staff present. The committee will report to the full board at least once a year on the audit process and result of such audit. A majority of the members of the entire audit committee shall constitute a quorum. So as of today, we have out of 3, we have 2 present. That's why we have a quorum. The audit committee shall act as an affirmative vote of the majority of members present at the meeting in which quorum is present. So just to go briefly over the audit committee responsibility. So the first responsibility is overseeing the financial reporting, information security audits, and disclosure process. That includes management is responsible for preparation of financial statements, establishing and managing adequate internal control over the financial reporting, while independent auditors is responsible for expressing an opinion on the fairness which the statements were presented in all materials aspects and financial position, the results of operations and cash flow in conformity with GAAP, generally accepted accounting principles. Various information security audits and assessments to provide assurance about agency security, processing integrity, confidentiality, and privacy controls. The other role and responsibility is oversight in hiring, performance, and independence of the external auditor. Additionally, they are monitoring the effectiveness of internal controls of accounting policies and principles, and also express their desire to review risk management policies and procedures. It is important for the members to understand the guidelines and policies which govern the process of risk management, and they also review the State Leadership Accountability Act. This is a report that we submit every other year to the Department of Finance, and is required to maintain effective systems of internal control to minimize fraud, errors, waste, and abuse. And lastly, their role and responsibility for the audit committee is interaction with management, internal and external auditors, and the board. The chairperson of the audit committee shall report to the board on the committee determination and shall present recommendation for approval whether necessary or desirable. And there's always the requirements is an annual review of the audit committee charter, which we will be proceed in a moment. That's basically my high level review.
That was excellent. Thank you very much, Ms. Glushenko. I really appreciated that. Thank you. Mr. Ballmer, do you have any questions about that particular presentation?
I do not.
Wonderful. Great. So thank you very much, Ms. Glushenko. Let's go ahead and continue, I guess, with the balance of the item. It says that I'm presenting it, so let's go ahead and do we have any comments or any staff recommendations with regard to any changes in the charter at this time? Okay, seeing none, I think that we're going to go ahead and consider the review of the charter as being completed and satisfying our annual review. What I would ask is that if Ms. Glushenko would make available to her, make available to Mr. Fred White and to myself copies of your notes or your presentations around the roles and responsibilities. That would be a nice introduction since Mr. White is new to the committee.
Sure, I'll make it available.
Wonderful. Okay, so with that, I think that concludes our annual review of the charter, and we can go back to item number 4. So with that, let me go ahead and turn it back over to Ms. Glushenko and Ms. Merchant and look at the healthy bicycle lifestyle slide that you have in front of us. I love it. Let me turn it over to you then.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. And we're still waiting for Fred White, but Ted, welcome to the audit committee. Before we begin the review of the financial statements, I want to express my gratitude to our auditors for their flexibility with last year's audit. It was challenging, and as the time that was specifically allotted for the audit have changed multiple times. And also I want to express a sincere thanks to our staff that contributed to the creation of the annual comprehensive financial report, single audit, and a popular annual financial report. A special thanks goes to our financing division, marketing and asset management, and fiscal services. This year we have received an unqualified opinion and a clean single audit, and we are waiting to hear back from the Government Finance Association, and we earned their recognition and were awarded with a Certificate for Excellence in Financial Reporting. Without further delay, I would like to introduce you to Mandy Merchant, who is a principal with an independent auditing firm, Clifton Lassen Allen, and Mandy will present to you right now with a fiscal year 2021 financial summary. Go ahead, Mandy.
Thank you, Oksana. And good afternoon, everyone. I appreciate being able to have your time this afternoon to go over the audit results for June 30th, 2021. I know, Delalia, you acknowledged the bike. That is our, our logo, our branding. We like to say that we like to come alongside our clients and ride. So we lots of symbolism in the bike. So that's kind of where we've taken it. So people are like, accountants and bikes? I'm like, yeah, some of us bike. So that's where that does come from. So we can go to the next slide. So I'm not going to go through the next 5 slides, but this is just information out there. You all have this this handout that you can look through later, but especially for Ted and Fred, I think there's some new members of this committee. If you don't know who CLA is, here's a little bit of information about us. The one thing that's actually not on the slide is that we do have 9 offices in California. We actually have an office up the street in Rossville that each year somebody from that office works with us. If you go to the next slide, one thing I just want to highlight on here, this is just, we got about 120 offices across the United States. If you go to the next slide.
Ms. Merchant,
I was told that,
I could interrupt
yes.
you for a moment. I just want to let the chair know and the rest of the committee that Mr. Fred White has joined the meeting at this point.
I saw him sneak on. I kept looking. I was like, oh, he's joined.
Fred,
oh, wonderful. Thank you.
Could you speak for a minute so we can make sure your mic is working?
Good afternoon, everyone. Hopefully you heard that.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
welcome, Mr. White, to the committee. We said we tried to reserve all our wonderful comments and compliments until you got here, but I'm glad you're here, and I just wanted to welcome you to the committee. We're so excited to have you as part of our group, and we look forward to your participation on the committee as we talk about the financial statements, look at all the wonderful things that the team has done to make sure that there's checks and balances within the organization. And I look forward to your participation. So thank you very much for joining us, and I'm glad you're here in time to hear the presentation.
Thank you, Director Sotelo. Appreciate it.
Okay, and then
With that,
again,
I'll go ahead and turn it back.
Yeah.
Yeah, let me turn it back to you, Mandy.
so then this again is just more information about us, just in case the new members want to know anybody more information. So you can go to the next slide, and this is the last slide, I promise, about us. It's just new material we're supposed to kind of put out there, just a little bit more about our firm. So again, for you to kind of look out on your spare time if you want to know about who is auditing CalHFA. So let's get into it. So just so everybody knows, on the next slide is just your CLA engagement team. I'm happy to represent that. This team is kind of, me and Liz have been very consistent over the past several years, working on the engagement, which I think is a really great thing for the agency. We're able to, run in as part of the audit process and get things started and get really, get things done. We know you guys for over the past 10 years. Each year we bring in some different people to assist us with this engagement. So last year we did have Philip and Roxana from our local office helping out. Okay, so let's get into the financials. So next slide. So you all should have a copy of, as they call it now, the ACFR. And within that large document, the couple things I want to highlight before we kind of dive in and kind of look at the changes in the financial statements from 2020 to 2021. Obviously, the first two, letter of transmittal and the GFOA award, Oksana mentioned that right now, that you're waiting to find out if you received the GFOA award for the 21. That award in the financials that you have is always a year behind. The independent auditors report, now that is the report, actually the one piece of information that's in this that actually comes from us. And basically, I'm happy to report that, based on our review of the financial statements and all the work we did, that your financials are, free of material misstatements. And what that means, if, for people that always talk in auditor terms, is that it's an unmodified opinion or a clean opinion, which is what you want. So that should be a hooray for everyone. So everything came out very clean for this year. The next two, management discussion analysis and the financial statements, we're going to talk about that in a little bit on the next slides. You also have supplementary information that you all include as part of having all your funds and programs disclosed. And then lastly, as part of having an ACFR, you are required to present statistical and statutory information as part of that. So a lot of information in that document. I'm going to go at a very high level. So if anyone on this call would like to dive into the details, just raise your hand and let me know. So, okay, so let's go to the next slide. So this slide, what we're doing here is from a high level, and you can find these kind of, this schedule is actually in the management discussion analysis inside the ACFR. And what we want to do is kind of look over to the right and look at the dollar change. So we're looking at the changes from 2021 to 20 and then 2020 to 2019. Very high level to kind of see what was going on at the agency when you compare these years to each other. And you can kind of see we're looking at some big increases in cash investments. We're seeing some decreases in loans, throughout this. And if we go to the next slide and we look at the liabilities, same kind of idea, looking down the right side, looking at the increase in some other current liabilities, a very large decrease in the bonds payable. So we're going to go to the next slide, and I'm going to talk about this with you all. And at any point, if anyone wants me to bounce back and forth, let me know, or go ahead and pull that PDF. If you look over in the the GoToMeeting, you can see this copy. You can open up and be able to go back and forth. So the big thing is cash. Cash and investments went up about $436 million. And that's due to a large transfer of funding into the agency for the National Mortgage Settlement Program and the multifamily loan servicing account. And that came through during the year, and it hadn't been spent yet. So that's why we're seeing that huge influx of cash coming in during the year. Also, you can see $174 million decrease in the program loans receivable. You guys haven't been issuing any new, loans receivable, so we expect to see large payments down. As the money is coming in, you're expect to see that kind of coming down each year after year. And we'll look at a little bit of, we have some 5-year comparisons to show you guys a little bit later. Also, as that money is coming in the door, you're also going to see the bonds decreasing. So you see we have a $409 million bonds payable, and that is a combination of that money coming in the door from the program as receivable, and then you all taking advantage of the market and paying down the bonds. So other current liabilities primarily decreased by actually several things. The pension and the OPEB liability is always kind of a flux every year, just with the market, however that's going, and just depending on the assumptions by the actuaries. Last year we did see a decrease in the pension liability of about $3.6 million, and then we did see a decrease in OPEB liability about 5.5. And usually what that means is that there's enough funding out there to cover that future pension OPEB expense for CalPERS. So that's very important to think about it. They got a bunch of money in investments, and then there's a liability that they know they have to pay. And the difference between that, in a very simple layman's terms, results in a liability that's allocated to CalHFA. So, and then lastly, the derivative swaps, they did increase last year. And that's just basically based on a decrease in fair value, increase last year, just a decrease in some fair value and lower interest rates in favor of the counterparty. So that did go that way. I was actually talking to Don earlier. I think we're going to be seeing a flip in that this year. So stay tuned. I think we're going to see a very big decrease in the swaps outstanding. So I know I just threw a lot at you. Anyone have any questions on basically the balance sheet? Okay.
If we can look a little at the $436 million that came in from the National Mortgage Settlement Program, when did that land in the account relative to the reporting period? Do you know? Was that like a first quarter, second quarter?
It was near the end, wasn't it? I'm sorry.
Was it?
I have to look, Mandy, real quick. So and just
I'll get Liz. Liz is next. I'll get Liz.
Yeah, just curious. Okay.
When did that money come in from the National Mortgage Settlement? The $400 million. Okay, she's gonna look it up.
Okay. I'm just
because
curious
we actually got confused. I couldn't remember when that money came in and then when the half money came in. I think we were talking the half money came in like July, so it was like right after year end. So.
Chair Sotelo, if I may.
Yeah.
Yes, please go ahead, Claire.
Thank you, Chair Sotelo. While Oksana is getting the exact dates, I may be able to offer just a little bit of context. I believe that was $300 million of national mortgage settlement proceeds, and I believe that it came to the agency in 2020. The exact receipt date I'm not sure of, but I believe it was 2020.
Great. So when we see the fluctuation in next year's reporting, you'll see that most of that has gone out as well. Okay, I just wanted to highlight that particular item. Thank you, Ms. Merchant. Go ahead.
Well, let's go to the next slide. So let's go on to the income statement. So, so a couple things on this slide, which I like to look at. Obviously, kind of going out to the right and looking at the changes from year to year, and you can kind of see things are relatively consistent. Not too many huge swings going on. You can see like overall revenue did decrease from 21 to 20. But then at the same time, you saw expenses decrease, not a complete correlation, but you are seeing that kind of down increase. And then you kind of go down into non-operating revenues and expenses. You can see there was an increase in those in the revenue. So, and then let's go down to the very bottom. If you look at the bottom, you see the net position at end of year. I'm sorry, go above that and see the decrease in net position. And you can see there was an increase of $618 million in 21 as compared to $452 million. And that's mostly a lot of timing you know what I mean, kind of coming in. And as you can see, a majority of that is related to those transfers we just talked about, that money coming in the door. So just a couple of things I wanted to highlight there just from looking at it on the schedule. But if you turn it on over to the next slide, we can kind of highlight a couple things. As you can see, just 48 million decrease in the total other revenue, just the reduction of the My Home program. So that's one key thing there. $13 million decrease in the interest expense, and that's basically the decrease in the program loans and mortgage, backed securities. Salaries and general expenses increased $2 million, and again, looking at your OPEB, offset reduction of salaries due to the state mandated furloughs. Total operating, non-operating revenues expenses increased to 56 million, which we previously talked about that swap revenue. When you kind of do that change, that increased the swap revenue. And then the transfers increased, as we mentioned before, with $186 million, and that's primarily due to the low and moderate income housing program, which we mentioned earlier with the Assembly Bill 101. So any questions on that before I get to some data analytics, just to kind of look back at a little bit of a look back?
Mr. Ballmer, Mr. White, do you have any questions? No? Okay.
Okay.
Thank
All right,
you.
so you want to go 2 slides, we'll skip past we'll go into there. So what we like to do every year is just to we've been doing this for years, just kind of looking at what's been going on over the past 5 years, where we kind of been moving, the trend analysis going on. And this derivative swap liability has obviously been going up and down, so kind of been moving all around. But as I mentioned before, and talking with Don, do expect these derivative swap liabilities to go down a lot. But you can kind of see they kind of peaked in 2020, and then we did see some decrease kind of going on. It was not as high as what it had been in the prior years, given about the sell-off of the swaps. Bonds payable, as you can tell, just they continue to decrease as you kind of get out of that market, without being in that market as much. So you would expect those pay downs to continue to happen. If you go to the next slide, and this is where we kind of mentioned before, kind of the same thing with the program loans receivable. Again, it's kind of been a little bit consistent, but definitely in a downward trend as those are paid down over the years, and as you kind of, not issue any kind of new ones on the whole loan side. Any questions on those data analytics?
Mr.
Nope.
Ballmer, Mr. White? Okay, can I ask
I don't
you about
know.
the...
Can you hear me?
Go ahead. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm not sure if Mandy would speak to this, but I do have a question about just program loan, the receivables going forward based on the 2020 and the 2020 volume. Just wanted the thoughts from the executive staff on how they see this going forward.
Ms. Johnson Hall or
take that if you like. So I guess I'll speak first to the receivables for, say, multifamily programs. We currently have been going through several years of the mixed income program, and we're now finally entering into the first fiscal year in which we're going to actually be converting to permanent first liens on those properties. So those conversions are going to start occurring. Our bonds payable will also increase because we'll be going into the market for the first time in a very long time to issue bonds to fund those permanent loan financings. Kind of stacked into these charts is also our single family whole loan portfolio, which is, we're not doing single family whole loans. We're not doing mortgage revenue bonds. There's no bond cap to do that. We pivoted our business line to doing TBA executions, which I think we've talked about at our previous board meetings, and we're going to also brief the board in the upcoming meeting in November. But that's a declining balance that's going to end up winding completely down. And so I think what you're going to see is a likely uptick in program loans receivable, but it's going to occur probably in the 22-23 fiscal year audit, right? You're not going to see a lot happening in this next audit cycle because, again, we're sort of We're just now crossing the bridge to those perm conversions as those new construction projects have finished and get stabilized and convert. And I also think on the swap side of things, in the chart that Mandy showed previously, I'm not sure where the fair value on the swaps will show up as of June of 2022, but in 22-23, the fiscal year we're in now, that $85 million liability dropped down to like around 22-24 million in our favor. And Irwin and the financing team have been negotiating rapidly to pay all of those swaps down now that we're sort of in the money on them. So again, you're probably not going to see as huge a swing as I'm describing until the 22-23 audit.
Thanks, Don. I appreciate that.
And Don, when do you think that we'll be able to get a report either at the audit committee or at the board around the swaps and how successful those buyouts were?
Probably in either November or the following. I think Irwin is planning on doing that. I think Chair Cervantes had asked for that update for the full board. So we'll be including either something informational or we'll be doing a presentation.
Great. And one of the things that I wanted maybe Ms. Glushenko to take a look at is as we report back on audited financials or the state of the finances for the agency, I think that tracking them by programmatic initiative would be an interesting way of looking at it. For example, this one on the program receivables, the nuanced distinction that Don made around the single family product versus a multifamily product, that was an interesting distinction. And that way, it's important to look at it collectively, but I think it's also important to maybe take a look at it programmatically. And to the extent that we're already looking at it as part of the financials when we report back, it would be nice to just track how each of the types of programs are, not every single program we have, but just, the single family versus a multifamily, how those are tracking.
Yeah, if I may just add, some of the information and Mandy, like we are presenting obviously is a high level just due to the time constraints, but if the board or the audit committee is of interest, the full information can be found in the agency annual comprehensive financial report. This is where we present by program and it's more in-depth analysis on each of the accounts and programs. So all of this captured to the level of degree that you're probably speaking of is just, we did not know if it would be something of interest we can probably include in a future presentation since this question was asked. But just for the time constraints, we typically present just a high level. And also, I just received the information to answer your previous question, the money for the NMS, the $300 million we have received in August 2020.
Oh, okay. So it was, okay. It was right at the beginning of the fiscal year. Okay. That's helpful. Thank you very much.
No problem.
And as we report back to the broader board, I think it would be a good, point of interest just to look at the single family versus the multifamily program loan receivable as a trend. So it would be nice to have that information. So with that, Ms. Merchant, do you want to go ahead and continue?
Yep. Next
Great.
slide, please. Okay, so the next slide, moving on, is into a separate report, is our single audit report. So this is separate that you would receive from the ACFR, and this is required because you all receive over $750,000 of federal awards. So each year we need to look at all the different federal awards that you receive, and based on a rotation, a dollar threshold, we do select programs to test every year and to review for lots of compliance requirements. So this is under OMB. So this past year, we did look at the Section 8 project cluster, and we looked at the Section 811 program. And I am happy to report there is no findings in the single audit, so we did not find any issues with these major programs. And we also did not have any financial statement findings. So again, so in addition to the clean opinion that you received on the financial statements up front when we were talking about the numbers, you also then from the single audit and then the financial statements for the single audit report also received no findings. So great job, everyone.
Congratulations. That is huge. That's fantastic. Great job.
All right, so if we go to the next slide, we do have a couple of things that we are required to communicate to the board as part of our procedures. A couple of things, just want to kind of go through these bullet points. We did communicate in a separate letter that you all should have received a copy of our responsibilities under generally accepted audit standards. We did review your accounting policies, estimates, and disclosures. There was no new accounting policies or change in estimates as compared to the prior years. When we say estimates, you're like, what are you talking about? So basically within your financial statements, you do have fair market value of your investments, you have the derivatives, you have the pension, and you have the OPEB. And what that means is that all those, there's some sort of an estimate that's put in place, if it's coming from the actuary or coming from a third party, for the fair market values that are in those financial statements. We did not have any adjusting journal entries, which is great. An entity of your size, we didn't have any adjustments as part of our process, us going through and reviewing everything. We did not come up with adjusting journal entry. We did not have any past adjustments, and that means we didn't find something of an immaterial nature that met a threshold that we didn't record. We call it passing. We did not have anything like that arise either. And then we did have attached to this letter is management representations, and then there were no other matters that we had to discuss as part of this letter. So does anyone have any questions about this separate letter you guys would have received?
No, it was very clear. I did want to ask, does the rest of the board get a copy of it, or is it just the audit committee that gets it?
Should be everyone.
I assume so, but I wasn't clear. Well, congratulations. It's really a testament. I mean, it's a nice way to have Lori have retired, right? Like, good for her. It's a nice feather in her cap.
So we go to the next slide. The next two slides, and I'll just kind of hit these kind of high up, but it's just kind of what's coming in the future for auditing standards. So, each year we hope and pray we don't have a new GASB, but we didn't have one in 2021. We do have one coming in 2022. The big one, I don't know if many people have heard about it, is the lease standard. So, just kind of really quickly with that one is basically the board felt that the financial statements were not fully represented by not having all potential liabilities out there recorded. So, for example, the building that you all lease will be required to be reported under GASB 87. So we're going to see on your books an asset come on called a right to use asset and a liability for those future payments that are out there. And the board just felt that gives a better picture to everyone that there is additional liabilities out there that the agency is using. So it's good for the board to know to make financial decisions that they can say, okay, well, they got to, you guys got a pretty big rent out there for this piece of office space for the next, 10 years. So they thought it was much more clear for the reader. GASB 91 is just about conduit debt. You all already do that. We have a footnote on conduit debt already out there in your financial statements. If you go to the next slide, similar to GASB 87 regarding leases for anything that you can touch, GASB 97 is based on all the basically any kind of software you have. So any kind of software or technology arrangements you have that you're paying a monthly amount is going to be also required to be recorded. And then lastly, these two new ones that I haven't even touched yet because we're a couple of years away on this, compensated absences, and then SAS 134. Just so you know about that one, that is going into place this year. That is a change in the auditor's report. So they have changed up the way the look of the auditor's report. They thought it was very important for the reader to know the opinion up front. If you look at the auditor's report, the old one, it takes like you have to go to the second or third page to get to what was the opinion. So now they put it on the front, and it's much more clear. It tells you this is an opinion. It was very confusing to the average reader in the past. So it basically was clarification. Any questions on any of these future pronouncements? Okay. Well, that's all I have.
What was a compensated absence? What was the
I'm going to be honest, Dylan,
101?
I haven't gotten into that one too much. I was looking at this morning and I started reading it and I kind of got out of it.
Okay, okay.
But no, I
But
think
these,
they're changing up the measurement and everything, like how it's going to be kind of recorded. So right now it's based on a liability at year end. So basically coming into, you look at what is the sick and vacation leave. Sick gets excluded out, so it just looks at vacation leave, and you multiply it out by the hourly rates and taxes and all that kind of stuff. So it appears they're going to be providing additional guidelines on how to record that. So it's very new recently.
okay. And then the scheduling issues that we have with the state doing its calculation and how that has delayed our audits in the past, is that still, for me, that would be the only other issue I wanted you to comment on.
Yes, and I
did that improve this past time?
I read your mind. I said to somebody, I know she's going to ask about. She's going to ask about that timeline. So I don't know, Oksana, do you want to happily report that we've received one of them?
Yes, I would like to say that as soon as Tina learned of and Dawn of the delays and reporting, they just want to be very proactive for this coming year, because I know how upsetting it's to our investors and everybody else, the stakeholders, that we cannot produce the timely financials. We actually addressed the issue with the state controller's office by sending them the official letter. And we actually had a follow-up meeting with our office where they reassure us they're taking care of the issues. It was a lot of COVID-related issues and delays from various agencies not being able to report timely, so they couldn't tie really their books and figure out how to produce the information. So I'm happy to report, like as Mandy stated, that we have received the pension information already this year, and in comparison last year, this information was made available to us only in February, but we already in receipt of the pension information this year as of last month, and we are working and checking frequently on the status of the post-employment benefits, which is what's really pending right now and preventing us from finalizing and completing our audited financials for fiscal year 2022.
Wonderful. Well, good job, executive team, for being so proactive on that. That's a huge improvement. So that's fantastic. Great. So go ahead.
I was just going to say, just with that, I just want to say thank you to everyone at CalHFA. We really enjoy working with you all over the years. You guys make our lives very easy, providing us everything, on time, accurately. Not having audit adjustments is a great thing. We've appreciated the relationship over these past couple of years. And I don't know, Delilah, if you could see where I am right now, but I'm actually in Lori's old office. We are on site right now. We're on site for the 2022 audit. So we are here working through things right now.
Wonderful. One of the things I will say, Ms. Merchant, about the work that you guys do, I love having you as a principal involved and having that continuous relationship with the staff and having that connection, just so that there's a continuity of review and just constantly strong dialogue. But I love the fact that you're bringing in new people to actually do a lot of the audit work, right? So it gets fresh eyes and you get, a real perspective on it. So I want to compliment you for doing that. I think that's very proactive and it's a good practice. Great. So Ms. Glushenko, do you have anything else that you'd wanted to cover on the financial statements?
No, I think Mandy have covered the most of it. Unless anybody has a question or specific topic that they wanted to talk more in depth, I would be happy to answer some of the questions or take the questions and answer them later. But Frederick, we missed you for the first presentation, but don't worry, I will be distributing the notes as Delilah requested for the review of the chapter. So to give you familiarized and give you a recap of the chapter, the purpose, the roles and responsibilities, I'll be emailing it to Melissa and she will be emailing it to the whoever's on the call today, to the benefit for the future reviews and notes that what we have already made available.
Thank you.
Right. Mr. Ballmer, Mr. White, do you have any other questions for the team before we move to the next agenda item?
I don't have any more questions. I'd just like to thank you for all of your hard work, very thorough, which is why I don't have any questions. You answered a lot of the questions that popped up right in your bullet points in a very succinct way. So thank you for that. And I look forward to working with you all going forward.
I don't have any. I guess my only comment is I've watched this report evolve over time under Dawn's leadership and mentorship of Oksana and Lori, and it's just an amazing document. And I think it speaks for itself, and the awards that you've gotten in the past kind of bolster that. So I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Fingers crossed, you'll let us know as soon as you hear about the award.
Thank you
for
everyone
next
for the
year.
compliments.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, with that, fellow committee members, we have item number 6 for any other committee matters. I don't have any on my agenda, but I'm not sure, Mr. Balmer, if Treasurer Ma had anything to add.
We have nothing. Yeah.
Nothing? Okay. Mr. White, do you have anything that you'd like to consider under this agenda item?
Not this time, Director Sotelo, but
Okay.
yeah.
Great. As you warm up, I'm sure you'll have more input. So with that, Melissa, do we have any public comment cards?
So what I'd like to ask is if we have any members of the public that would like to address the committee now, please raise your hand. I don't have any hands raised at this time, so I'd say we have no public comment.
Great. Well, with that, thank you everyone for your participation today, for all the information that you provided. It's so valuable to, have such a stellar professional team to work with. It makes our job on the audit committee so much easier. So thank you very much. And, just a reminder that we have our next meeting of the audit committee is the morning of November 17th. We're going to have another meeting. So that'll be our second for the year. And I look forward to seeing you then. Okay, with that, I'll go ahead and ask for a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Wonderful. Thank you, Mr. White. With that, we'll go ahead and adjourn for the evening. Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Everybody,
Thank you.
thanks.